Hello and welcome. In today's training, I'll be showing you how to design an automated Excel template that computes straight line depreciation. Before we go ahead, what's depreciation? Depreciation is a reduction in the value of a tangible fixed assets due to usage, damage, the assets being outdated or out of use, and the length of time you've been using that asset. In simple language, I will say if you buy a car for 100,000 today and you want to sell it after 6 months, you won't be selling that car at 100,000. You'll be selling it less than that amount. So the difference with the cost of purchasing that car, which is 100,000, and the amount you sold it, which is going to be less than 100,000, is what we call depreciation, meaning that there is a reduction in the value of that asset. Right. Now, there are different methods of computing depreciation. And one thing you will know, if you're using a method for an asset, you need to be consistent with that method. In today's training, I'll be showing you how to design an Excel template that computes depreciation using the straight line method. So in designing this template, there are Excel functions and features I used to design that. So it's important to take note of those functions. We use the counter function, the count function, the year function, the if function, the SLN function. This is the function that calculates straight line depreciation, the sum function, and font formatting options. It's also important to know that this template is designed to capture assets with a maximum useful life of 20 years. If you want to get the completed version of this template, kindly hit the subscribe button and like this video. Also comment in the comment section by dropping your email in order to send this completed version to your mailbox. Right. So this is the template. This is how it's going to look like. Here you have the cost. You input your costs here. The salvage value is the amount you will sell the assets after its useful life. Here we are using a laptop as an example. We purchased this laptop for 550,000 naira. You can format this based on your country's currency. I'm using Nigerian naira because I'm a Nigerian. And the salvage value is 70,000. That's the amount we hope to sell it after its useful life of 5 years. And the life, that is the useful life, the number of years the laptop will last before selling it is 5 years. The date of purchase is the 20th of January 2017. That's the date the asset was purchased. Now, this is where you are to input the necessary details. Here you have your headings, and in this first column is the period. This captures the number of years. If it's 5, it will stop at 5. If you increase it to 10 now, you see that automatically this template has been designed. So all you need to do is to input your variables here and it updates here. So if we take it back to 5, notice it goes back to 5. So the year, it starts from the first year, which is 2017, and down to the last year. This calculates the opening value at the beginning of each year, and depreciated amount, accumulated depreciation, and closing book value. So this is what I'll be showing you how to design in this training. So we'll just go ahead and start designing this from the scratch. So I'll just open a new worksheet. Good. What I'll do is just to copy this. I'll copy it as value right to rule 28, and I'm just copying the values, right? So you use the paste value. This is the paste value option. Good. And that is it. So I will increase the zoom for more visibility. I think this is okay. So this is our heading, and here we bold, it's bold, and I think we gave it a 14. Let's give it 14. And here we have the borders. You give it all borders. Then you give this the formatting, comma separated, the reduce the decimal. You also give this a date formatting because that's a date, short date. Good. So here we have a red font. Give it a red font. Good. So we are good to go. Okay, select from this point and apply borders to it. To line 28, all borders. Right. Good. So here we have a fill color of light green, and we bold it. So this is okay. This we can wrap the text and center. Yes, you also do the same thing for this other cells. Wrap and good. So we can just increase it to make it look better. Good. Okay, wrap. We'll just no, not merge and center. We'll wrap and center. So this is wrap. Good. So we are good to go. Ensure all these are well centered. Just make it center. Good. So we have our period, the year, opening book value, depreciated amount, accumulated depreciated amount, and the closing book value. Now, for us to start inputting the formula, I always tell you to start with the equal to. So we'll take it column by column, right? So for column A, we want to automate from A9 to A28 because this template is going to be covering a maximum years of 20. So we'll just select the first 20 row, which is A9 to A28, 20. So, but then we first of all impute it in the first cell in that column, then we automate it and fill downwards. So what do we want? We want the first period based on the life of this. So we'll be using the counter function and say, let me just delete all this. We don't need this. So we just input our formula. So equals to, use the counter, and we'll say this cell A8, make it absolute by pressing F4. 2. So you should count, make this one, the first A8, which is this, should be absolute. Press F4. So count from cell A8 down to A8. So I want Excel to give me the number automatically, like to number it serially automatically. So that's why I'm using the counter function. So watch and see what happens. So the first is 1. So I take it down to 28. So you see it's 20. So notice here I have 5. So I want it to stop at 5. If I put 10, I want it to stop at 10. So what I would do is to wrap this in an if function. So watch what I would do. So I'll say if this counter function is less than what we have in our life, so we'll make it absolute. C5, what we have in C5 is less than it, make it absolute. Just leave it empty by putting this. But if it's not, you can just put back the counter function A8, A8 to A8. So I'll make the first A8 absolute. I'll make this absolute, then I can now close the bracket. All right. So if it is this, to ensure that the lifespan or the number of years is not exceeded, we wrap this. So if it is less than this, we put 0, but if it's not, it will return the number for us. Right. So you can now close and enter. So you drag the formula downwards to 28. Good. So you can see. So if we make this 10, watch what happens. Good. It goes to 10. If we make it 15, watch what happens. It goes to 15. So this is what we want to achieve. So we're good to go. I'll take it back to 5. Good. So the next column is the year column, and we also want to automate the year column. First of all, we're going to be using the year function. You see equals to year, the year of this cell, the year of this cell. Make it absolute by pressing F4. You close the bracket. So you see the year is 2017, which is what we want, which is the first year. So for this cell B10, you just say equals to this cell plus 1, right? So equals to 2018. So if you drag it down, right? So it will give you to the last, that's the 20th year, right? But we want it to stop at this year 5. Then if it's 10, we want it to stop at year period 10, right? So how do we now automate that? So what we're going to be doing also is to wrap this in an if function. That's to wrap an if function around it. So just watch how I go about it. So you say equals to if using the we'll also be using the counter function here. So we'll be saying if for cell B10, if counter. So what we are trying to calculate is this. If you count the B9 to B9, that's if you count this cell to B9, so if you count it and it is greater than C5, make this absolute minus 1, right? Then return empty. But if it is not, B9 plus B10. But I'll have to make this cell, remember I have to make this cell absolute, F4, yes, in order to make my formula dynamic. So that's it. So you close the bracket and enter. So what we'll do is to fill this formula downwards. Good. So you can see. So we have our 2017, which we use the year function to get the year element of this date. Then we now wrap the if function around counter function to automate this formula to ensure that Excel returns the year as long as the period is still on. When the period ends, Excel stops returning the year. That's the essence of that if and the counter function we have in here, right? So we'll now calculate the opening book value. The opening book value. The first is to link this. This is the opening book value, which is this 550, right? 550,000. You can put any currency. If you have, you can just format it, but I will not use any currency. I have Naira. If you can just use any of the currency that suits you. There's also a lesson I have on my channel. I'll also put it around how to change a country currencies to your currency, right? So, but I'll leave this without any currency. I'll just leave it blank, just value itself, right? So we've linked this. First of all, you link this to this which is the beginning value for the first year. So for this particular second year, what you do is say equal to is going to be the closing value of the first. Mind you, the closing value of the first year will be the opening value of the second year, right? So because we don't have any value here yet, that's why you're seeing this way. So for us to automate this, first of all, what we'll just leave it at this so that you will appreciate it when we input figures here. So first, let's just go ahead and calculate the depreciated amount. So the depreciated amount is using the SLN function, which is the Excel function that calculates straight line depreciation. So it equals to SLN. What's our cost? This is our cost. Make it absolute, F4. What's the salvage value? This is the salvage value. Make it F4 absolute. And what's the life? This is C5. Make it absolute. And you close it. So this is the amount the assets will be depreciated, because the straight line depreciation is a fixed amount over the lifespan of that asset. So this is the amount the assets will be depreciated every year for 5 years. So I will just drag this. Good. So now what I want also is for us to automate this formula to ensure that at the end of the access life, it stops computing. So make Excel understand that if there is, if the period, if 5 is the last period for the 6, there should not be any depreciated amount, right? So we have to also automate this particular column. I will also be using the if and the count function. So what we'll be using here is the if alongside with the count function. The if alongside with the count function. So just watch me closely. We already have our SLN. We'll wrap the if function, then count. Now we are using count. So what are we counting? We say count cell A9, right? So count cell A9. If it is less than 1, if that cell, when you count it and if it is less than 1, that means it is 0, right? Give me an empty cell, right? That's the first thing we want to test. Now, we also want to test that if cell A9 is also greater than C5, which is the lifespan, because for this lifespan 5, you see 5. If it's 10, it's 10. So if what we are seeing here is greater than, right, also return empty. So also put an if this A9, right, if this A9 is greater, that is, if cell A9 is greater than what you're seeing in cell C5, which is the lifespan, right? If it is greater, also return an empty cell. But if it is not, return this first formula, which is the SLN function. So we close the bracket, right? So you understand that when you count cell A9, right, the count function counts the cell that has value in it, right? Just value numbers. So if you count cell A9 and it is less than 1, I want this cell to be empty. I also want you to test if you count cell A9 and it is greater than the lifespan of the assets, also return empty, right? But if all these things are not applicable, then just put in this formula, the straight line formula to it. So, okay, I believe there's something we are missing. Okay, this is the logical test. If, okay, so you're not supposed to close the parentheses, good. So we'll close this bracket and we'll enter, good. So I think what happened was that I closed this if function here, which is not supposed to be. First, this is the first logical test, and this is the value to return empty, and this is the value if false, and I close all the parentheses at the end. All right, so that's it. So you now drag this formula downwards, drag it downwards. Good. I guess we are missing something in here. We are missing something here. So let's look at the formula again. A9, so yes, it's going to be relative, A9. Okay, our C5 is supposed to be absolute. Press F4 by making it absolute. Then we close, we just enter, then drag the formula downwards. Good, good, good. So that's it. So you see the importance of always making your formula dynamic, right? So that's it. So the next column is accumulated depreciated amount. Accumulated depreciated amount. And how do you calculate accumulated depreciated amount? We'll be just using the sum function to do that. You just put your equal to the sum. So we want to, the first, for the first year is this cell to, summing all the depreciation for previous years. So for the first year, we just have 1 year depreciation. So we say D9, by making this first D9, it's more like a running balance, like a running total. So this first D9, you make it absolute by fixing it. You fix it by making it absolute to the same D9. So 96,000. So if you drag it down, you see it's going to be computing. So 96 plus this 96 will give you for the second year accumulated 120, 192, 192 plus this accumulated, so continuously. So, but we'll have to automate it to stop at the last year of the asset. If it's 10, it will stop at 10. If it's 5, it will stop at 5. So what we'll be doing now is to be using the if function and the count function, right? So we'll use the if function and the count function as we've been using. So I'll just say we'll wrap the if function and also wrap the round function around our initial formula. So what are we considering? What are the conditions we are considering? We want to count cell A9, and if we count it, if you count this cell and it is less than 1. So we want to count cell A9, count it. If it is less than 1, it should return an empty cell. If it's not, so you should do the sum, right? If it is less than 1, right, return an empty cell. Or if it is not, sum this and return it, right? So I can close the bracket and enter. So I will just fill this downwards and let's see what we have. Good. So you can see it stops at the 5th year. So you see our formula is getting more dynamic. If we make it 7, you see we are moving very fast. So now the last column is a closing book value. The closing book value. And this is, we'll be using the formula, just a simple formula to calculate this. So you just say equal to, that's the total opening value minus the accumulated depreciation. The total closing value minus the accumulated depreciation. That's the closing book value. So you see, immediately the closing value here becomes the opening value here. So I'll just reduce the decimal to 2 and give it a comma separated. So here too, we'll just increase the decimal, make it currency, okay? Or just increase it or give it a formatting style. Good. So we have 550,000. So this is the closing balance. So when you drag down, but before we drag down, let's come back to this point. Let's come back to this point and make our formula dynamic. And the only way you can make this formula dynamic is to wrap this formula in cell B10, wrap an if function around it, because here for the first cell, which is C9, sorry, C9, we linked it to C3. You understand? We linked it to C3 because our cost, which is our opening book value, is in C3. So we linked it there. So for this particular one, it will be the closing value after you've depreciated the assets for the first year. So the closing value of the first year will be the opening value for the second period, right? So that is the formula that is in here. So when you drag it down, this way, you'll see it will give you, but first of all, we need to drag this down. You see, we have it. So while we are seeing this value, okay, here there's no figure. So we'll stop at 5, but we are yet to automate our formula. So what we'll be doing now is to automate this formula by wrapping an if function around it. So you just say if F9, if this if the F9 is equals to this salvage value, all right? If F9, because why we are doing this is because if our closing book value is 70, that is the salvage value, there's no need of further depreciating, because that is the value we'll be selling it at the end of the lifespan of the asset. So we want Excel to consider this, that if the closing book value of the previous year is equals to the salvage value, if it is equals to it, then there's no need of you calculating, just return blank. But if it is not, then return the cell, which is the closing value, which will become the opening value of this the second period, and enter. Right. So that's just it. So you now drag your formula down. Good. Let's look at our formula. This is okay. Yes, this is okay. So I don't know why we're having, I think this is where the challenge is. So the closing value is the opening value minus depreciated C minus D. Is that what we have here? Okay, this is where the challenge is. So it's supposed to be C9 minus D9. All right. So C9 minus D9, not E9. Think, pardon me for that. C9 minus D9. Good. So that's, I think we are good to go. So but we need to make this formula in here dynamic too. We need to make the formula in column F dynamic. I put the if function, if count. So we still want to count the cell in A. So we count it if it is less than 1, as we've just been doing. We return an empty cell. But if it is not, just do C9 minus D9, then close the bracket, and there you go. So it stops where, so good. So I believe we've already filled this formula, opening value. Yes. So same thing here. Good. So we already fill it. So you can see if we input 10 years here, good. You can see we have for the lifespan of 10 years, it stops at 10. Let's make this 15. Okay, it stops at 15. Let's make it 20, and there we go. It stops at 20. Good. So this is how you design an automated straight line depreciation Excel template. Right. So if you want to get this template, you can just like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment in the comment section. Drop your email in the comment section, and I'll send this template, the already designed template, to your mail. Right. So this brings us to the end of how to design an automated straight line depreciation Excel template. I'll see you in the next training. Bye for now.